Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we are discussing the biggest ever Rolex Day-Date. This is the Day-Date II in white gold, reference 218239. This model family was made from 2008 to 2014, and it represented the largest of the so-called presidential Rolex models ever made. Now, of course, the Rolex is the Day-Date. The Bracelet is formally named the President, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. How big? Well, 41 millimeters in diameter, 11.9 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip, 49.5 millimeters, and 52.9 millimeters from end link to end link. The watch also has a spacing between the lugs of 21 millimeters. Now, when I throw the watch on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you can see the biggest difference between this and the later Day-Date 40 isn't the case size, it's the end link to end link spacing. So on the Day-Date 40, this end link is pivoted so the bracelet pulls straight down out of the lug. Whereas here, you can see it flares out and then pulls down. It is much broader. The timepiece sits broader across the wrist. And whereas I have absolutely no qualms about wearing a Day-Date 40 on a smaller wrist, I do think you need to have a wrist of at least 15, maybe 16 centimeters circumference to wear this. I'll let you be the judge, but my wrist is 16, and those end links really do push right out to the edge. So I think my wrist might indeed be the smallest wrist that can wear this, but it is low, as should be with a dress-compatible watch. It's low in profile, it has a sloped conical bezel, and you can slide it underneath the cuff. The feeling of mass and precious metal is incredible. That's down to the solid end links, solid center links, thick gauge clasp, and a solid white gold case back. Taking a look at the bracelet is formally called the President. Well, the watch is often nicknamed the Rolex Presidential or President because of its famous coterie of previous owners. The bracelet has always been called the President since the model line originally launched in 1956, and the President bracelet includes 3 links, like the Oyster, but short link cross sections like the Jubilee. The result is that it has a handsome, somewhat dressy look, but also the structural integrity you'd get with a sports watch bracelet. And unlike an Oyster, it has many small links, which means a lot better venting on the wrist. The center links are polished, the flanking links are satinated, the outer faces are polished, removable links are fixed by screws. There's a conforming end link better integrated into the case. And then there's a little bit of a downward taper as we move away from the lugs. Here we have a single fold white gold clasp with a beacon to hook locking system. You can see how it snaps shut. So in contrast to previous crown clasps, this one actually has to be pivoted up and unlatched in order to open. So you see the little pivoting action? So it's not just slammed and snapped together like a friction fit. It has more security, but it still looks just as discreet. The famous crown clasp showing you the partition point between the 2 sides of the bracelet. The only visible mark of the partition is the 5-point coronet. That's why it is called the crown clasp. The case, the bracelet, and the clasp are all made by Rolex at its own facility. It has its own foundry, it smelts its own gold, and it makes its own alloy. This is white gold, 18 karat, but it's what's known in the industry as gray gold, an 18 karat white alloy that is white all the way through, homogeneous, so if you scratch it, it's the same color underneath, and it never needs to be replated with rhodium. This is the higher grade white gold. It's what you'll see on JLC, on Patek, on Grubel Forsey, and it's what Rolex uses. We have a fluted bezel here. Traditionally, this meant a gold bezel of some description, white, rose, or yellow. Recently, the platinum bezels have been optionally available in fluting. So if you see this fluting, you know it's a precious metal bezel, even if the rest of the watch is steel. We have a twin lock crown in gold. You know that because you can see 2 dots. It's a screw down, and it's 100 meters water resistant. We have an Oyster case back, and we have a dial with a blue wave. So there's a lot to love here. Of course, Rolex is a brand with deep-seated nautical roots. How deep? Well, 1926 was the arrival of the Oyster, a water-resistant case that, while not the first water-resistant watch, certainly helped to popularize the type and make it viable in series production. And so here we have what could be alternately interpreted as waves atop the sea or a rolling seabed on the likes of which you might find oysters. There's a contrast between a metallic blue base and then the wave effect is created using alternating lines of black lacquer. So if you look carefully, you can see it's a conventional blue sunburst dial, and all of the undulations are created, or at least the impression created, by these wavy lines of black lacquer. We have radially arrayed white gold Arabic numerals. You can see the quirky upside down 6 that becomes a 9 down at 6 o'clock, the way we were with Rolex at the time. There's a small track outboard for reading your minutes and your seconds. We have white gold numerals, white gold crown, white gold hands. Note that the baton-style hour and minute hands are fluted down their center for better legibility against the dial base. All these parts are white gold so that over time they will not tarnish, oxidize, or change color. You can see we have the Cyclops Eye magnifier for the date, and that works well. On the bigger Day-Dates and the bigger Datejusts, it doesn't crowd the dial the same way it does on the 36mm and smaller models. This is actually quite practical here, and it doesn't monopolize the face of the watch. Now we have two subsidiary setting modes. One is hacking seconds, which you can see in action right here. I can stop the seconds hand and synchronize to a reference time. In the intermediate crown position, I also have a double quick set, so I can rapidly cycle the date, but then I can also rapidly cycle the day, each without disrupting the other. Underneath the case back, we have watch movement that is unique to this model family. This is the 3156. So a few things change compared to the 3155 and the smaller Day-Date. We have Rolex Paraflex shock protection rather than KIF, and we also have differently sized day and date wheels for the larger dial. So this is an automatic winder with bidirectional winding action, a 48-hour power reserve. You've got the double quick set, the hacking seconds. It beats 8 times per second. It pivots on 31 joules. It is a certified COSC Swiss chronometer. Remember, the certification is on the movement itself, not the whole watch, but Rolex has always been known to test and approve the timing of its watches before they leave the factory, and if they are chronometer certified as movements, rest assured Rolex has always assured the owner that the watch also met chronometer standards as a fully cased up watch. Now it also has a combination of a full balance bridge and a free sprung balance for shock tolerance, and a handmade overcoil hairspring. It's a Breguet overcoil profile that is created to center the mass of the hairspring, so in any physical position the watch isn't going to pick up speed or lose time. And then that overcoil hairspring is made of a blue oxidized niobium zirconium alloy. Rolex calls Parachrom blue, that makes it very anti-magnetic. So this watch has a lot going on. It's really a hybrid dress watch and sports watch with the best elements of both. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.